Sound speeds. And if you've been watching my channel for a while, then you're familiar with this background. But as far as I'm concerned, this is upgrade day because I'm going to be taking this background down and putting up one that will function more like a soundstage background. What do I mean by that? Well, why don't I start at the beginning, and just so it's been said, I'm going to be doing this more in candid mode, just stream of consciousness speaking, where every single word is polished and tuned. This is going to be more candid mode, so that way you're going to see the real me, stutters and everything. So let me explain a little bit of how I came to end up in this background. Now, I'm not going to recap everything I said in my Look of Sound Speeds video. I'm going to be moving forward from here. But what I will tell you is that when I did my initial test of this channel and started doing research in fall of 2016, it became very clear to me early on that in order for me to be taken seriously, I had to get people to click on one of my videos. One of the best ways to do that is to look more like a professional in a professional background and environment, which is how we came to end up with this. Now, you may look at this if you're familiar with sound and saying, that's just cheap foam. You're right. But one of the things I realized early on is that if I just put a camera in my background, which is looking crazy, like a regular room, it's going to be more difficult for people to be taking what I say seriously because most of what I do is on location, shooting in the real world, on films and television. We don't shoot inside of this room a whole lot. So if I want to make it look more professional so that way people will click on my videos and listen to me, it's got to not only look professional, it's got to sound more professional. That's how I came to end up with this background. In my initial test, I did not like what I saw, so I decided to change up my background. I could have gone the booth method and made myself an entire booth, but that would have taken up most of the space in this room. There's not a whole lot of space that I really have to spare. And even then, I'm maximizing every bit that I possibly could. So I decided to do what I do in the real world and make this into more of a film type project on a set piece. So that's how we ended up with this. All this is well, I'll tell you what, let me show you from a different angle. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that never once have I referred to this as a sound booth. It's more of a set piece, and I've even referred to it that way. And this will show you what it looks like. It's simply 3.5 feet by 7 foot tall pieces of wood that I put this foam on top of. And it's just 2-inch foam. And the only reason that's been up there is because it made it look a little bit more, I guess you can almost say like a set. It's never really been designed to look like a booth. Most of what I'm facing over here is OC 703, and there's dense foam up above. There's foam over here that I've kind of blocked out everything. And because I basically do my presentation videos right here in front of the camera, it's never really been that big of an issue. So first things first, we're going to tear down all this old foam. And with this, the last piece of foam is now down. If you notice the background here, all I've really done is taken 2-inch paper tape, it's stucking up on the background to give it a little bit more sticky surface for it to go on. And then I've been sticking it up with the dual-sided mounting tape and Joe's sticky stuff. Now, you may say clean that stuff up before you move on, but in all honesty, it's not really going to bother me because of what we're going to be doing to this background to cover it up. As for this mess of foam, should I repurpose it? Should I not? I don't really care about it. So this box is nearly open. What am I doing with it? Inside there is a blanket made by the company Audi Mute. Now this is going to go on this background here to provide at least a little core base of, I guess you could say background reinforcement, sound protection, and basically it's NRC, noise reduction coefficient. And if you basically if you want to cut down on a lot of the reverb that happens in this area, you put up sound absorbent material, and that's what this is for. This is basically going to be stapled up in the background. If I did nothing else of this background and just left it like this, in addition to it looking like garbage, it would sound like complete garbage. I mean, look at this. This is terrible, isn't it? Now, if I back up in here, you can hear how this microphone sounds in this reflective space that just is terrible in every possible way. And this is the way that my videos would look if I didn't do anything to it. Now, normally sound stages rely on what's called soundproofing and sound absorbing or sound deadening. And in order to actually block out the outside world, you need to actually soundproof it, which means an STC or sound transmission class. The rating has to be high with dense materials that blocks up sound and prevents sound from coming in through to your soundstage. Basically requires heavy duty, dense, strong material that sound can't travel through very easily. But then on the inside, to treat the reflections, you need to have what's called an NRC or noise reduction coefficient that is in excess of 1.0. At least basically you want every single frequency to be above 1.0, and it's ideal for not absorbing or not reflecting sounds, I should say. So right now what I'm going to do is install the Audi Mute blanket behind me, and we're going to take it from there. I just put this up, so why am I taking it back down right now? Well, because this little corner right here has too much of a gap in there. I need to snug it more into the corner. Otherwise, I'm never going to have enough room for the outer layer on top of it. It's starting to look better, isn't it? Well, the most important thing is, how does it sound? You tell me, how does it sound right now? I mean, I'm not done a whole lot more aside from add this little blanket in here. Well, it still could improve some. So I'm going to continue to, basically stick this down. And once that's done, we'll move on to our next step. Tell I don't do installations for a living. Much better, much more smooth now. Yeah. Cool. Moving on to the next step. Believe me, my wife is happy to see this box gone from downstairs. It has been down in our living room for about the past 2 months. I ordered this around Christmas time, and at the time of this video, it's early March. So isn't that nice and fun? Yeah, she's not happy. She's not been happy with me for leaving this down there, but I wanted to get the tax write-off on this for the year 2019, so I bought this in 2019. These are insole quilts, which line the inside of every professional soundstage in the entire world. And I wanted to have the same kind of thing. You're seeing me just now open it up. Oh, yeah. White on one side, black on the other. This is the kind that does not have a foil back, because I don't need STC here. My background is very, very quiet. I mean, it's just a residential type area. So this is going to be what lives on the back wall now. The funny thing about insole quilts is that they're made in Los Angeles. And in order for me to ship it across the country, it costs about $280 because it had to be shipped via freight. All right, now this box is nearly collapsed. Jeez. Oh, you stupid box. Okay, the insole quilts themselves were around $450 to $500, and the shipping was $280. So you can imagine how happy I am to actually get all this stuff and to now have it here where I can finally install it. I'm just opening these up for the very first time, and if you notice, they're 4 feet wide and they can be up to 36 feet long. I got them about 11 feet long. That way I should be able to go around this entire environment, including stick out on this side just a little bit. 4 feet wide, you may say? Yes, 4 feet wide, this dimension. They're designed to be held and installed vertically on a soundstage. So as long as your ceilings are not higher than about 40 feet, there shouldn't be an issue hanging these at all. Now, I did say that they're designed to be installed vertically, and that's true on a soundstage, but they can be installed horizontally as well. So if you have a studio project that you're looking to wrap with some sort of insulation, you can certainly get insole quilts to use for that particular purpose. Now, I'm going to be installing them horizontally here as well, so that way I can go all the way over and cover up the part of my window here that's peeking out. And I designed it to be that way. I ordered them extra long for that reason. And also because they're 4 feet wide and my ceiling is about 7 feet, it's also going to allow there to be an overlap of about this much or so from the ceiling down, or from the top of this background down. And that's going to give the most amount of absorbent material right there at my chest cavity in this area here where it needs it. That's going to be great. This is exactly what I wanted it to do, to come all the way to the end here and then overlap this window gap. So this is the perfect length. Good, so this is sitting off the ground ever so slightly, so that way, I mean, who needs really insulation and sound protection right down there by my ankles? I don't really need that. So let's move on to the top layer. Because space is limited and I don't feel like moving this entire table over, what I'm going to be doing is clipping the blanket in place using these #1 clips. But to support it until I can get the clips on it, I'm going to be using this ironing board behind me. So this is going to be nice and fun. Now that the clips are holding the blanket in place, all I need to do now is add some staples so that way I can remove the clips. Done now with that step. Now moving on to the outside layer, because this doesn't look finished at all, does it? Every soundstage around the world finishes their insole quilt with either hardware cloth or chicken wire. Most soundstages use the hardware cloth, which is what I'm going to be using today. Everybody from Pinewood and Paramount to Warner Brothers, Tyler Perry Studios, and Screen Gems. They all finish it with usually hardware cloth, and it usually follows along a certain design. And I'm going to be following that design today. This whole thing is going to try to unravel on me. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing is installing this on the outside of it and then screwing it in to hold it in place. And hopefully if I don't let this thing go, I mean, it's... Okay. This is a more rare hardware cloth. It's black because it's coated. It also has 1-inch squares. And the width of it is 3 feet as opposed to 2 or 4 feet like most hardware cloth. The hardware cloth has been measured to the right length, so all I need to do now is cut down to everything that's right there at that length. Now that I've cut and folded in this edge, all I need to do now is lay this over the other hardware cloth and duplicate the size. Yeah, that's going to do nicely. Now all I have to do is just screw this into position. Looks done to me. Why don't we close it all up and see how it sounds? All right, here we go. Let's test this thing out here. Backing up. Sound dropped really quickly. Talking into this corner, right over here. Talking into this corner. Good. All that money wasn't wasted. Now, the way that NRC ratings work and stuff like insole quilt is normally you would install this in a studio with a concrete backing. So the sound goes through and then it bounces off the concrete and comes back through. And that's actually what gets its NRC rating. It's not just the sound going through it. That would be more STC and sound traveling through something. The NRC rating is the rating in how much it drops in acoustic energy by the time the sound goes through and then back this way. And normally, if you put up insole quilts, you would have a little bit of pocket of air behind the insole quilt between that and the concrete wall, and that's what gives it a little bit of extra space to bounce back the sound. But what I've done instead is added the audio mute blanket behind it, so that way it has even more to go through. So I should be, at least on this side, not necessarily this side just yet, I should be pretty acoustic dampened back here. If it doesn't have an NRC rating of 1 and the lower frequencies, I don't know what else to do. So to me, I think this works really well. And personally, I know it's kind of hard to see on the camera right now because I haven't changed up the lighting and everything, which, by the way, I'm going to do in a part 2 studio upgrade video. I think that the addition of the hardware cloth makes a really good polished look for this design. Sound stages rather, they do look a lot like this. They do have washers with screws going into that. Now, I had to use 2 different kinds because it's different thick and it's going into wood. But I think this kind of gives it a nice look. Now, normally, you don't need to add them nearly as often as this. They would install it straight into concrete or something that's going to hold up a whole lot of weight and drive it in a lot deeper than I did. I'm just trying to go through a piece of 1-inch wood. So to me, I think this works really well. Now, hardware cloth, if you recognize it, it's what's used in like playgrounds, especially the rubber, or not the rubber coated, the coated version. I think it's plastic coated. It's coated so that way that it's kind of like wire. I think this is number 8 or number 10 wire. And it's simply coated over so that way people don't get hurt when you touch it. And considering that I'm going to be back here messing with microphones, this is also my editing desk when I sit down. And I don't want to end up scratching myself all over this stuff. Plus, it gives a really polished look being that it's black. So to me, I really like this. I like the way it sounds. I like the way it feels. To me, this is a great upgrade and money well spent. So you know I'm upgrading this system because I plan to be here for a while. So if you want to join me in this journey and whatever I choose to do in the future, by all means, I'd love to have you. So thank you for joining me in this adventure in sound upgrading. I can't even think. This has been a long process. Thank you for joining me in this episode of Sound Speeds. Be sure to tune in the future for more studio upgrades and more interesting sound knowledge and sound advice. Have a question you'd like answered or want to add something? Be sure to write it in the comment section down below. You can also make a suggestion for future topics of discussion. Again, comment section down below, or you can email me at soundspeeds@yahoo.com. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss out on future sound advice.